What is up, YouTube? It is Mr. Egoting, aka your future father, and as you can tell by the title, I have a UFC 137 prediction commentary. I've been around the UFC for about 3 years, I want to say, around 9th grade, 4 years. The first UFC I saw was UFC 92 or 93. It was one with Rashad Evans or Lyoto Machida. Rashad Evans is actually my favorite fighter. I know he's a dick sometimes, and he's kind of cocky, but, you know, I really like him. And yeah, so jumping into the main card, and just to let you guys know, I'm not an expert or anything. This is just my opinion. I know a few things about the fighters, but I don't know too much. So jumping in, the first main card fight is Hatsuki versus George Roop. It's a featherweight fight. It's at 145, and Hatsuki's record is 24 wins, 4 losses. He's got a lot by submission. I actually did not write that down. But he's been a champion in Japan before, and George Roop has actually fought pretty big fighters in the UFC, Mark Hominick, George Sotiropoulos, and he has failed to win those fights. So I'm assuming he's going to lose this fight because his record is also 12-7. I think it's kind of they're kind of feeding him to the sharks on this fight, even though Hatsuki is a newcomer to the UFC. I just don't see how he can win this fight. But, you know, that's my opinion. I'm sure he can win this fight. And, you know, it's the UFC. Anything can happen. Or maybe I should say it's MMA. Anything can happen. And then the second fight, so I got Hatsuki in that fight. I'm going to say, I don't know, submission round 2 or unanimous decision. All right, so our second fight is bantamweight. We got Scott Jurgensen, who was 12-4 against Jeff Curran, who was 33-13. Scott Jurgensen is a Division I wrestler. He's a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Jeff Curran is a second-degree black belt in BJJ, which is great. That's hard to become a second-degree black belt. And his record's 33-13. Scott Jurgensen is a Division I wrestler, and that's kind of the Achilles heel of any Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu wrestler or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. But I think Jeff Curran, he has a lot more experience than Jurgensen, and I think he's going to pull this one out. I think he's got pretty decent striking, and I think he's got a lot more experience. And I don't think Scott Jurgensen is really that good of a fighter. He's only 12-4, and I think Jeff Curran's going to pull this one out, submission round 1 or round 2. But like I said, I could be completely wrong because these first 2 fights, I don't know too much about the fighters, but I know enough to put my prediction out there, and that's my prediction. So I got Jeff Curran, submission round 1 or round 2. Going into the big fights, the fights that I know about, the first fight is Mirko Cro Cop versus Roy Nelson, and here I got some good statistics. Mirko Cro Cop, if you guys don't know, he's a kickboxer. His record is 16-7. If you guys don't know, in his Pride days, he was probably the most feared striker in the heavyweight division, but now he is still one of the most feared strikers, but he can get knocked out very easily. Now, at least, he has 7 losses. 4 of those are by knockout. He's 4-5 in the UFC, and his last win was against Pat Barry, and that was a submission win. And if you watch the fight, he was getting, I wouldn't say owned, but he was losing on the feet in his element because they're both kickboxers. And then I don't know why Pat Barry didn't want to take the fight to the ground, but Cro Cop was realizing he was losing the fight. Somehow he got a rear naked choke on Pat Barry. Horrible submission defense by Barry, and Cro Cop won that fight. But his last 2 fights have been knockout losses to Brandon Schaub and I think it's Junior Dos Santos. I'm not sure. But it was Brandon Schwab knocked him out, and the person he's fighting now, Roy Big Country Nelson, is actually a guy that knocked out Brandon Schwab. I know they're different people now. Brandon Schwab is a lot better fighter, but I'm just saying Mirko got knocked out by Brandon Schwab, and Brandon Schwab got knocked out by Roy Nelson. So moving on to Roy Nelson, he's 15-6. He's 2-2 in the UFC. 2 of his losses, although, have come to Junior Dos Santos and Frank Mir, 2 of the top 5 guys, heavyweights in the world, I'm sure. He's a BJJ black belt. He's got pretty good stand-up. He's got heavy hands, got a great chin. 15 of his wins are by knockout, and I don't see any way Cro Cop can win this fight unless he utilizes some leg kicks, some body kicks, or maybe gets a lucky head kick in there. I think he's too old now. I think he's going to retire after this fight. Maybe if he wins, he might have one more fight in him, but I think it's really time for him to retire. And I think Roy Nelson's got this fight in the bag with a knockout round 2 or a submission, but I'm going to say knockout round 1 or 2. And yeah, I got Big Country in that fight. And moving on to the next heavyweight fight, we have Cheick Kongo and Matt Mitrione. Now, Cheick Kongo, he is 16-6 overall. He's 9-4 in the UFC. His last win was against Pat Barry, and that was probably one of the greatest comebacks in UFC history, possibly in MMA history. I don't know how many comebacks there have been. I haven't seen too many great ones, but that one was definitely one of the best. He was pretty much knocked out on his feet. The ref did a great job not to stop the fight, and Cheick Kongo ended up knocking out Pat Barry. And actually 16 of his wins are by knockout. So this guy's got heavy hands. He's got really crisp boxing. He trains with Wolf Slayer Academy. I believe that's where Michael Bisping and Quentin Rampage train. So you know he's got some good striking. He's got some good sparring partners up there. And then Matt Mitrione, he was on the Ultimate Fighter with Kimbo Slice. He is 5-0 in the UFC. He is 5-0 overall. So his only fights have been in the UFC. 4 of those wins are by knockout, so this guy's heavy-handed. He's got a pretty good chin. He's beat Joey Beltran, Christian Morecraft, Kimbo Slice, Marcus Jones, and Tim Hague. But if you look at those guys, none of those guys are really that great heavyweight. You know, Joey Beltran is kind of a gatekeeper kind of guy. You know, he's not top tier. I don't know if he's top 10 in the heavyweight division, but you know he's good enough to test the newcomers into the UFC. And then Christian Morecraft, he's kind of the same kind of fighter. He's not ever really going to be up there in the title race, but you know he's a good enough fighter to stay in the UFC. And I just don't think he has enough experience to beat Kongo, although I could be wrong, like I've said. But I think Cheick Kongo, like I said, he's really crisp. I think Matt Mitrione's kind of a brawler. I think if Cheick Kongo, I think he'll win this fight on the feet or on the ground. I could be wrong though. Like I've said, I think he could get knocked out. There's a big possibility that Cheick Kongo could get knocked out, but I'm going to go with Kongo TKO round 2 or round 3. Although I am a big fan of Matt Mitrione, I think Kongo might pull this one out. And on to the main card fight. Now, you guys know, if any of you guys are UFC fans, this main card fight was the one that got pulled. It was St. Pierre and Carlos Condit. That fight got pulled. I got really sad about that. But moving on, it is BJ Penn versus Nick Diaz. BJ Penn is 16-7. He's 12 wins, 6 losses, 1 draw in the UFC. His notable wins are over Renzo Gracie, Kenny Florian, Sean Shirk, Matt Hughes. He beat Matt Hughes twice. He was the lightweight champion. He's the welterweight champion. This is a dream matchup with 2 of the guys with the best BJJ that are non-Brazilians and the best boxing. Top 10 has to be the best boxing in the UFC. And then Nick Diaz, he's 6-4 in the UFC. His last fight in the UFC was UFC 65, which I believe was like 2004, so he hasn't been here in a long time. His strengths are BJJ and boxing. I'm really surprised he's not a black belt yet, but I guess it's hard to get a black belt under Cesar Gracie. He's a Strikeforce champ. He's on a 10-fight win streak, and in this fight, I don't know what's going to happen. Both of these guys could get submitted. Both of these guys could get knocked out. I'm going to say BJ Penn. He's getting a little old. I saw he was a little out of shape. I'm going to go with Nick Diaz, submission round 2 or round 3, or TKO round 2 or round 3. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you guys like the UFC predictions, and peace out.